So I thought that making a video narrated slideshow would be better and more time efficient, and hopefully, yeah, just better for everybody. So welcome to Raleigh, North Carolina. It's here. There we go. So it's here, kind of in the middle of the state, about 2 hours from a lot of things. 2 hours from the mountains over here, 2 hours from the beach over here. So it's all there, but a little bit of a trip. And you'll notice here's the triangle region that they refer to: Durham, Chapel Hill, and Raleigh. The Research Triangle Park is right in the middle here, and here's the airport, which is pretty convenient because if we kind of zoom in on Raleigh here, you can see it's got these concentric circles, just like most cities. Here's kind of the city center, and then there's suburbs around it. Northwest Raleigh is where Vision Point is, right around here. And I can actually show you, if you look at this map, basically what happened was, it's not updating. Hold on. Well, anyways, I got it into the airport, up here, oh boy, gotta turn that off. Drove down here. This is where I stayed in my Airbnb the first time I ever came down. This is Umstead Park, which has lots of cool trails and stuff going on. Didn't go inside it, but I was living next to it. And then Vision Point is right down here. And then Sarah lives right down here. So she's closer to the center of the city. But most of this band is where I've been, between 440 and 540. And a lot of this is already relatively suburban. And we'll get more into that in a second, what that looks like. So this is where Diane lives. This is where Josh lives. So they're, further out there, and these are definitely more residential. Whereas, Sarah's closer to lots of, strip malls and commercial restaurants and things like that. Curious thing about it is a lot of these kind of very wide roads. You've got interstates coming out of the city, but then just in general, very wide roads going places. And overall, it feels like a place that is kind of young and spread out and being newly developed as it grows. So you've got Raleigh, and then you've got Cary, which is over here, and this is where a lot of people apparently do come down to live when they come to work for their employers, or down in the Research Triangle Park, which is, wait for it. Wait, I thought it was right here. Which is out here, a little bit outbound. So Cary is kind of, a place with a lot of people who are not from around here. Let me get rid of this. There's like really just downtown Raleigh is like this nexus here, and I'm going to show you all these areas in just a second. But really quickly, there's people who live in Cary and work out here in Research Triangle Park, and that is right in between those two and Durham and Chapel Hill. So here's kind of what I'm trying to get across. Like, there's no super like centers, like town centers or city centers. A lot of it to me just feels like you've got these kind of like sister cities, and then within them there's lots of housing developments. If you zoom in, for example, you don't see names of neighborhoods per se. You see the names of developments: Londonderry Townhomes, Holland Park, Parkwick Village, Kirkwood Park, Ridgelock Townhomes, that kind of stuff. Yorkshire Downs, Copperidge Townhomes. Just lots of new developments that are either condominiums or apartments, or even the places where Josh and Diane live. I'll just bring you up to Josh's neighborhood for a second. Remember I said he lives kind of up here north of the city. That's about a 20-minute drive from Sarah's. Here's where he lives, and it's beautiful. It's on a cul-de-sac, but you can definitely tell that a lot of it has been kind of manufactured, and they have an interstate. It's pretty noisy right behind them. So this is kind of the biggest theme I noticed, was just a lot of commercial stuff, commercial chain restaurants and spaces. I don't know why people are on Slack right now. Commercial houses and like brand new developments and stuff like that, which is great. It's like very pristine, and it's been manufactured to look that way, but it's been manufactured. That's kind of the point. There's really no way to drive, walk or bike places. You pretty much have to drive. So from Sarah's, it's like a 2-mile drive to work, and that takes about 10 minutes. So it's better than Boston, where it takes 10 minutes to go 1 mile, but you also can't really, walk to work. And you can't really like walk to much stuff. And a lot of it is like chain restaurants and stuff like that. Like I don't see as much local stuff. And it's not like Norwalk, where you've got kind of like a town center or like, kind of a one focal point, because here you've got basically just tons of these, developments. And then you've got lots of these commercial developments. So there's like the housing areas, and then there's like where you go for all this stuff, kind of like Henrietta in Rochester. And again, like you've got access to things, but to me, it just feels like very manufactured. There's other things like the humidity and snakes and other stuff that we can get into later. But just in terms of living here, I wanted to show you a couple things. So I want to show you what some of these different things are like. Basically, what some of the housing around here is like. That's Josh's neighborhood. This is Diane's neighborhood. This is, in my opinion, really nice because it's more private, more greenery and stuff like that. And there's a lower cost of living. So like when you must be a millionaire to live in places like this, but these are a bit more expensive, obviously. But that's something that I like. You can tell that Josh's street is not really private at all, even though they're nice new houses. So Vision Point, like I said, is right off of this main strip of I-70. And again, like I said, really wide roads, pretty fast, a little scary. I'll show you right now, actually, when I got in, I came down to the airport and it was great. It's like a month and a half ahead of here in terms of weather. Lush green trees, all this nice stuff. Went to Josh's to play Jenga. And then this is Sarah's housing development. So basically what I'm going to show you is started here and then drove up to here. Sorry, we came in from the airport, drove all the way down here to Sarah's, and then drove back up here to the office this morning. And basically, where she lives, there's these nice like trails. It's not updating, but there's these nice like, trails behind her apartment complex. And it's not a great, complex. It's a little sketchy, but she admits that it's like, affordable. And but it's fine. You come back down here, and there's you can kind of go running on these trails, and these are nice. They're like right in the woods, nice and quiet. It's paved, so you could bike or run. We're not here for about 25 minutes. You come to these crossings, and then this is a little bit away from her. And again, just very wide roads. You can see a little bit more privacy of some houses up here. But there's kind of this underlying sense that even though it's very beautiful and nature-like this, I don't know why it's jumping around like that. There we go. That you're kind of still near lots of stuff, which is, I guess, good because you don't feel isolated, but also a little bit stressful. There's another housing development right off the trail because a little bit stressful because you can just tell that there's like lots of kind of people around at the same time. What I mean by that is like I was on the run and I saw this kind of stuff, and then on the way to work, this is what we saw. Like we got out of her complex down to the main drag, and boom, just like traffic everywhere. And she admits that people, here aren't from around here, and they're all pretty bad drivers, and like 5 lanes wide on like most of these roads. So just like good things to know about, commute, for example. You're pretty much driving to work, and whether it's in or outbound, a lot of people actually live in Raleigh and go out to the Research Triangle Park, so outbound traffic can actually be pretty bad in the morning. So her commute takes like 15 minutes in the morning, even though it's 2 miles. So just good to know in terms of like some realistic expectations. And then this is us in the office setting up for karaoke, setting up for the summit. Karaoke is like 12 hours later. So let's go do a little bit of a slideshow. Like I said, there's the airport, there's the park, there's the city center. Like Rochester, it's kind of like half and half, like in terms of where people live and how nice certain areas are. So for example, east of Raleigh doesn't seem to be very nice, but west of Raleigh seems to be. Raleigh, this northwest area, Cary, these areas seem nice from what I've heard. And there's stuff like outdoor recreational areas, this lake and this park and all this good stuff. It is about a half-hour drive out here. Like if we go to here, we can see that I mapped it from Sarah's, which is down here again. That's about a half-hour drive out to UNC Chapel Hill or out to Duke. So from these places, it would probably be more like 15 minutes, which isn't bad because, and it's not all developments, obviously. There are some areas that are more like older neighborhoods, but are kind of far and few between. But you do get more of those from out here, and so you can definitely be outside the city. But even though it's a smaller city, there are more kind of suburbs because you have more of these other cities. They're kind of like overlapping suburb areas. So you again, it's not quite like New York City where you can be way out in Connecticut and like still there's a lot of people around, and there's kind of a focal point. You do get the sense that there's like these different cities and people have kind of identities or prides based on where they live. Raleigh seems nice for the most part. Cary seems nice. UNC obviously sounds beautiful. Duke sounds beautiful. Just when you Google them, of course, you get all kinds of nice images. Chapel Hill very much seems like nice, kind of classic Southern charm and all this stuff, and very beautiful. And then Duke is a bit different. You get the sense of the Gothic cathedral and definitely a bit more of like a historic feeling campus. Probably something that you'd feel pretty at home in a place like this. Unfortunately, Duke is closer to. I'm doing a terrible job of this. Closer to Durham, and Durham doesn't sound like it's as nice. But people live there too. So people tend to work in Research Triangle Park or in downtown Raleigh or in downtown Durham and live in, Raleigh suburbs or Cary or Chapel Hill or areas of Durham. And it can take for some people from work, coming down into here at work up from Durham, the better part of an hour, things like that. So, a lot of it depends where you live, but it just, there's definitely some pretty stark differences too. What I noticed just looking into things a little bit more was, like I said, you kind of have all this traffic, you come onto this main drag, and then you come up here, and again, this is I-70 that goes into Raleigh. You're kind of coming out when you go to work, go down here, and then, you can already see what some of these areas are like, kind of the business developments too. And these, ironically, actually, I feel like you'd be comfortable with, like this kind of things that you've expressed interest in the past in places like, Norwalk. And this reminds me of actually the place I interviewed in Hartford at Rebecca's company. This is kind of like our little business development, and our office is like right back there. See if we can see the Vision Point sign or something. I guess this is before she bought the building, but what says something group is now Vision Point Marketing. Interestingly, this was taken in April of 2016, you can see, and there's like not as much green on the trees, but I guess in the last 2 weeks, things have really blossomed. You can see now this is in June. This is kind of what it looks like. So pretty big difference there. I can go in the parking lot. That's cool. Ooh. Okay, getting off topic, Alex. So that's kind of like what it's like going to work. So you can start in a nice, development and end up at a pretty calm office park. But there can be a lot of stress in between. And just in general, again, it seems like anytime you go anywhere, you kind of have to drive. I looked up a couple other things. So it's Diane's neighborhood. So this is what it's like in the Research Triangle Park. Similar kind of idea to Vision Point, but on a much bigger scale. It's basically its own kind of like truly a park. Like you can see they're building a campus over here. Like pretty much every building down here has a campus. And you come down off the highway and you kind of come in here and you're just kind of weaving around. And it's its own, I don't even know if there's like, retail or restaurants or anything like that in here, but it feels like its own place that you're in with like roads and street signs and stuff like that. And then there's just lots of these, big parking lots with buildings, and there's also lots of trees, but you can imagine these being like packed with cars during the day. And very much like buildings where you come out and have your own parking lot, your own building to work in, and all this cool kind of stuff. It's kind of interesting. I've never really seen anything quite like this. This is downtown Raleigh, actually. This is the state capitol building. We're in kind of the center of the city right now. Not all of it, but a lot of it is planned, which is similar to, in a different way, like the suburbs are planned, and they are like cul-de-sacs and like charming windy roads. They're not on a grid, but you can tell that they're, planned developments. Similarly, this being a planned city, it's got a lot of these grids, and it's kind of like classic of the South to have these kind of square block grids. And there is like a good amount of green space in a lot of areas. It's a blend. It's a mix between Rochester and like a big city. I mean, you can tell it doesn't feel like a huge city. Like you could get away driving here if you really had to, and you'd be okay. You'd survive. Um, but there's no public transportation that goes between like the cities or anything like that. Um, and I think it just depends kind of, ooh, that looks like rain, what part of the city you're in. So in this sense, it's like pretty approachable, but maybe it doesn't, feel like the big city as much as you get in the Northeast, but still like a, really nice place, seems like. So it's just kind of a taste of like downtown Raleigh itself. Obviously, you can look up more if you want. So there's that, and let's see, yeah, that's downtown, and that might be the bulk of what I wanted to show you. I was trying to like think of kind of a coordinated, like orderly way to do that, and I probably failed. But that's just what I've. I just want to layer on what I've heard, a lot of what I've heard from people. There's someone named Kay who used to live in Boston and came down here, and she kind of said the same kinds of things. Like, she was like, yeah, I mean, she doesn't. She enjoys summer, but she's probably not as into the sun and heat and everything. But still, she said it just gets hot here in a certain way in the summer that just gives me like this terrible temper, and you just have to put the AC on. And even Sean said, with the AC on, it's not just the heat; it really is the humidity. Even when it gets cool at night, just everything is always damp, and so the AC helps kind of dehumidify it too, which is a plus and something that he like feels like is really necessary. So there's that, and then I think Case expressed similar things that like it's cheaper, but it is a little bit more. There's some areas that are very like commercial or just like feeling like it's very spread out. Basically, I guess everything feels like it's very spread out, and that's kind of the sense I get. That there's plenty of room to go around. Everybody can have a lawn or an estate if you live in Western states, but it is like all, I don't know, just planned out and kind of and ironically not as much privacy with some of the streets not being as green and stuff like that. So those are some hopefully kind of honest pros and cons that I kind of see of life down here. We can talk more about how it makes you feel, and any other questions you've got. Sorry I wasn't able to get too many more pictures today, but I hope to get some more tomorrow if I go on a run and kind of check out some other neighborhoods. This is us doing karaoke. This is Diane, Louise, and Dana. That was kind of amazing. And Matt over here, Tony over here. It's kind of amazing watching Diane do karaoke, not gonna lie. We also did a Myers-Briggs test today and shared that with people. I'm right here. And so, I don't know, we can talk about this at some point too. You can see not many people over here. INFJ is up in this corner. So, Maria, Arthur, Christians, and AM. Kay just started. She's the one who moved from Boston. And these people just started too. So, actually, a lot of new people in this category. So, yeah, that's about it. We talked about weather, proximity to stuff, neighborhoods, houses, businesses, all being kind of commercial, where the airport is, how you can get around. Again, for the most part, congestion isn't too bad in terms of traffic because they've got nice wide roads, and there's access to decent nature and stuff like that. But a lot of it just feels very spread out, and it gets very hot in the summers. So hopefully all good things to keep in mind. And I don't think I'll be able to take a drive out to Chapel Hill or Durham. Honestly, it didn't seem like it's even worth it to go into downtown Raleigh. I think what I've seen so far has been helpful, but I think the rest you can kind of get the idea from Street View. So if you want to do some more exploring, I definitely recommend maybe checking out more of like Cary over here, because I don't know as much about that, but there and like north and west of Raleigh in these suburbs seem like pretty interesting areas, and then maybe like checking out more of what's around Chapel Hill. I think Chapel Hill, the town, does have a bit more, historic charm maybe than some of the other places. So definitely, to me, has kind of a nice feel to it. And, there's different kinds of suburbs around that area that might feel a little bit more at home too. I don't know. So yeah, that's your tour of the greater Raleigh area. I can definitely do more research tomorrow or take whatever other pictures I can. Just let me know. Hope it helps.